Good morning and welcome to our Sage 50 coffee morning. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me there. Okay, the volume's coming through loud and clear, and I'm just going to start to share my screen there. So if we pop that up there. Sorry, just there, get that screen up. So we're going to kick off there this morning, and we're going to have a chat through on some of these Sage 50 features that aren't maybe known to as many or used very often. I'm just going to cover off a couple of what I think are repetitive tasks that may be able to help us look around the orders, suppliers and customer, look around the VAT return, touch on the audit trail and the bank, around the bank reconciliation, and just talk about the bank feeds. So I'm going to shoot straight in to the Sage 50 there. So if I can just stop sharing there, and I'm going to just pick up my Sage 50. So I'm hoping everybody can see my Sage 50 there. And we'll kick straight into it. So I'm going to start off with around the orders area. And what we've got listed here is all our sales orders. And what I want to show you there is, instead of, if you've got customers that are repeating maybe some orders, is use the duplicate button up here. So once you have your order highlighted, click on the duplicate and you can copy straight down what was on the original order. Now, if you choose to change any of the pricing, quantity, or the details in your order, then that will be fine and that will be accepted. And if we click on save there. Now, again, another repetitive task is, would you want to allocate your stock at this stage, or are you going to allocate later? If we allocate later, what happens is we've got to go through steps. So we'll have to pop in here, highlight that, click on our allocate, and we're going to have to do a number more steps than we would if we just did it at that point. And that's down to a parameter. Okay. The other thing is, rather than again going around to different areas of the system, why not, if we have a shortfall in our order, why not just generate your PO from your sales order? So in this case, because we have a supplier set on our product code, a default one, it is allowing us to generate the purchase order at this stage. So again, I can create my purchase order, and even in still in the same screen, I can view or edit that purchase order. So I can make some changes to it. I could decide to add more products to it, because now that I'm already dealing with this supplier and sending off my order, it would make sense for me to add more items. I don't have a default price, so I can put one in there at that stage. And once I click save, now again, getting your parameters right. Do I set the purchase order to be on order now, or do I set it to be on order later? So if I do the on order now, again, I don't have to go into the purchase order sections. And again, likewise, if I want to print the order, I don't need to go into that section there. So for the sake of the demo, I'm not going to use any of the printed options there. So we've got our sales order created there. We were ending up with a shortfall. And now what I've done is I've been able to create the purchase order at this point in time without even leaving the sales order screen. If I'm ready to do the sales order, again, parameter driven, I can click in here and I can create, I can create there my print. So I'm just going to, I just In this case, I don't have a printer attached, so I'm just going to send it to a Qt PDF and send it there, and it'll be on my desktop for me or sent by whatever means that I have on my parameters in the background. So what we've done is we've been able to duplicate. And now not only that was I able to duplicate the order, I could in fact duplicate that sales order straight into an invoice. And again, that would save me having to go along and start keying in all the individual items at that case. So if we pop into our invoicing, you can see that I've got the same parameters in here. I can duplicate this invoice as an invoice, I can duplicate it as a quotation, or I can duplicate it back as a sales order and start the process again. So depending whether you use sales orders or not. But one of the other items, again, if we have an invoice here, and what we may want to do is we may want to credit that invoice. So again, rather than going into new credit on the top left-hand side, what we want to do is I'm going to credit exactly what's on the invoice here. Now, I don't need to credit all the lines, excuse me, and I may be changing the quantity here, but the idea is that I don't have to find the details of what the pricing was and what the quantity was if I need to amend it. Now, while I'm at it in here, if I decide, so I'm going to just click on save, and what that will do, sorry, if I click on save there. Now, again, to speed up the process without having to use the update ledgers or go into the customer, I can see, do you want to update this credit and allocate it to the invoice, which I have selected for crediting. So 100231, and I'm going to say yes to that. And it's told me not only has it posted there, it has done the allocation. So if I pop into the Cork University and just have a look at the activity, and you can see there my credit note for the 399 has come all the way through without me having to do any updates. So one other thing just before I leave the invoice area here is that if we double click back in here, and I have created this invoice, and what I want to do is I've noticed that I'm constantly placing this order with them. So whatever's on my line, so I've got an original invoice, but if I click onto the memorize, I can put in some details, what it's about. I can set the period of time. So if I do daily or monthly, or just drop into the list there, you can see weekly or years. I decide when I'm going to start the repeat or recurring invoice, and I click save, and I come out there because I've made no changes. If I pop into my recurring, you will see that this one has now been added. You can see the frequency there that I had set, and I had said no to the end date. If I click on process, you will see, because today is the 1st and that's when I was starting it, that one invoice has come up. If I wanted to do any future, particularly if you're planning on going off on holidays or anything like that, and you want to have them prepared for somebody, you want to, so it's telling me that they're outside the current financial year, that's fine. And you can see now that I have 2 invoices that are created, and literally clicking the process behind the scenes, I'll just close off that. Behind the scenes, I have the 1st or the 3rd there and the 1st or the 2nd identical invoices. And likewise, I can use my duplicate, my crediting, or straight into my updating. So I've only shown you 2 screens there between the sales orders and the invoicing. And hopefully you can see, if using the duplicate, you can use the credit invoice, you can use the quick print items on that a little bit more efficiently. So I'm going to go into the customers. So I was having a look in here. Now I was having a look at what items in here that we don't use that often. And one of the things that came up was the communications. So I can either pop into a customer at this way and pop to communications. Or you will see up on the top here, there's a comms dot. So I don't need to go in. Again, a shortcut will be straight in there. if I just close off that just to show you, if I pop into comms, it'll be the same screen, but I just don't have to click through to it. So I can do a new invoice or a new order at this stage. Again, shortening, I may be looking at some of the communications and I want to shortcut to an entry of new invoice, new order. But in this case, all I want to do is I want to add a note, a communication onto the customer. Now, sometimes this can be, if there's funds due, I set the date as today that I'm doing this. I'm contacting the manager and I'm doing the contact type. So I'm going to be making that. What was the outcome of that? So I would probably leave a message. I've got letters, which I'm going to refer to later on. They may call me back. So I'm going to say they call me back. Sorry, I'm actually going to say I was promised an amount of €100. And that was due on the 2nd. I'm not going to change the status of the customer because I could at this stage put them on hold if I wasn't getting any joy out of my chase. So I'm going to leave their position. So I'm going to say bank transfer due. Okay, and I'm going to click on save. So you can see there, I've got a number of them there that they're adding up. If it gets too much, obviously I can delete entries there, but it's good to have the track on it. So I'm just going to save that and come back out. Now I'm actually going to do a receipt here for the customer on the CUH. And I'm going to pay off 100 here. And I'm going to click save. Now you can see, because I put the communication that the 100 was due, I can be given the choice now, do I clear that communication because I have received it, or maybe I had only received 50 and I don't want that promise of a payment to be clear just yet. So again, somebody may be managing the age debt, but somebody may be managing the bank and the lodgements onto the customer. So again, save having to email somebody, say, watch out for this. You can see it here. So I'm going to just say, yes, clear that. That's fine. I've received my 100. Imagine we hadn't, and we were wanting to, the communications of the telephone haven't been working. So what we want to do is we may look at letters. So we want to see, can we draw up some letters? So you can see I've got an address change one, maybe the business has changed address, or I'm doing a chase. So either one, I'm just going to drop in and I'm going to preview it. I'm giving there, because I only have CUH highlighted in the background, this is the only one it's pulling up. So it's telling the customer, and I can literally email that off if I wanted to all the customers if I had email addresses. Or more importantly, I've got a chase letter here. So again, it will only go to CUH because I got them in the background. And I'll put a date range for what I'm looking on their account by. And you can see here that I have written them a letter here to say that these are the invoices that are outstanding. Now you can amend those letters. So all we're doing in here is in the report designer, once it pops up there, is going to show us the details of what we can write in there. So we can change those details in the letter. We don't have to take what Sage has done out of the box. Now you can see there that I had a star on my reports and on my letters. Okay, I think the designer there wasn't coming up, so apologies there. If you just allow me to stop my share, and I'm going to reshare there. And hopefully that will come up if I pop back into my letters. And I'm going to click on the edit, and hopefully that might have come back up at this stage. So you can see here that this in here is where we can type in any note we wish, and we'd have to save that off there. And we can save it as another one. So we could have different levels of letters. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'm not going to save that. Now, as I said, you can see here I've got two star letters. If I pop up here to my favorites, you see this address change. labels, and you can see itemized chase letters. So rather than again trying to drill in to in here, you can actually have them as your favorite. So we'll just throw one up here. Let's go into reports, and I'm going to add my age debtors. Let's say I'm going to add another one here, age debtors analysis, and I'm going to close that off. If I pop up to my favorites, you can see that that has added that one there on the list. So again, another just quick little trick there that might make it a little bit easier. So another area I was investigating when I was looking for this morning was contracts. So some of us may have the same customer and supplier that we deal with. And tucked up here in the menu, there's a contra entry. So it is warning us that we're not allowed to use this function with a non-base currency account. That's okay, mine is euro. So I'm going to pick up ABC. And on my supplier side, I also have an ABC. So again, rather than having to do customer receipts and customer or supplier payments, I can select that I'm going to get this amount from the customer, and I'm going to offset what I owe onto the supplier account. So these are all the list of the outstandings that are there. And all I need to do is click on OK. Now you'll notice that I didn't have the same balance on each, which is more than likely the case. So the 615 versus the 424. So it's warning me here, do you want to make a part contra for the lowest amount? I do. So now because the date on some of these transactions are different, then it's just saying to me to post. I'm going to post because again, this is only demo data. So if I pop into the customer here, you'll be able to see the contra for the 424 that I discussed. And you're able to see that is matched against SI 36. So if I pop up here to the 36, you can see here that I have a part payment of 190, and you can see that that was the receipt on there. And then if I pop into the suppliers, you can see in the activity in here, I've got a contra and a full payment of my 424, and that's cleared off because you can see there's nothing outstanding, only the other invoice 939. So again, another trying shortcut there if that's applicable. Now, I was talking about letters and various things. They are in the supplier side. Obviously, they will up in the favorites not linked to one particular module. So if I add any reports like the age creditors, that will appear under my favorites under here. You can see here again, I've got the communications, so I'm using the shortcut, and exactly the same fields that are going to be on our customers as are on here. Particularly maybe, why would I use it on the customer side? It would possibly be for disputes, maybe if I'm communicating with the supplier to see what's wrong. So while I'm in here, I'm going to look at, a lot of people aren't using the bank transfer for the suppliers. So where a lot of people, and me included there some years ago, were that I will do my exercise of paying my suppliers via my Sage 50, but then I have to go in and I have to do a payee transfer on my bank. So once we have the parameters set up on the bank, and once we have, if we take, let's take the ESB and we look at the bank. So once I've got these pieces of information and the payment method set there, then I can pay these in the bank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a supplier payment, and I'm going to take up the ESB, and you will see here that the reference is BACS. You must not change that because that is what it uses to identify that we're making an e-payment. So I'm going to click on, excuse me, one of my invoices. I can put another reference here for my own internal reasons there if I wish to, and I'm going to click save. So that is all exactly the same, but the difference is, remember the BACS. So I'm going to pop into my bank account, and you'll see up here we've got e-payments. So any of the payments that I've made, you can see these are just some older demo ones there, but you can see the first to the second is the one that I have here ready for payment. I can select them all. I can select one and process through. Now, I don't have any bank connected on this, but I can just go a little bit through this. So it's giving me the confirmation that the 73.80, and I say okay to that. And this is the bit I can't go any further. I can put the date of the payment, because we all know that we've deadline dates in on our banks. So make sure it's 3 o'clock, they get the right date on that. And then you'll have a bank reference, usually the OIN number that needs to be entered here. And you can dictate where that file is dropped out. So it'll drop that file, and that's all you need to use to upload it to your bank. And it's as simple as, and again, I am going to abandon that. And it's as simple as that. And then all you need to do is jump into your remittance advice and to tell the supplier what it is. And you can, again, you're going to have the list of all of the available remittances there, and you can click on the print. And if you've got your setup there done right, you can click it straight onto email by the run button. So you can see very quickly, again, shortening the number of keystrokes for some very common functions within Sage. So I think that gives us a brief overview, or I hope it does, of some of the areas that can be of use. So I'm going to jump into the VAT area. And you're probably all familiar, and you're all using your VAT return, or at least I hope you are, because everything that's recorded in Sage with the correct VAT codes, and again, you must make sure that you understand your VAT codes for the system to be performing at its optimum. So, excuse me, normally what I would do is I would do a backup, and we would say that to everybody. And in this case, I don't need to because I need demo. I'm going to pull a large range here because I have so limited data on it. But first thing that's happened on my VAT return here is that I have run a VAT return, obviously, for 2021 at some stage, and these were excluded. So in other words, I must have posted them back into Sage after the VAT return. So again, a good way to trap any transactions that may have been posted back. So in this case, I'm going to include them as I should. Now you'll see that there's a warning sign up here. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to view the results. And what it's doing is it's telling me I have possible duplicates. Now I would, because I've been putting in repetitive data for the sake of a demo, so that would be right. But you can see I've got my invoice numbers, I've got all of the details that I need to make a decision on this, and I can send it to Excel so I can follow up or get somebody else to double check for me. It's warning me that there's 31 invoice credits which have not been updated, so should they be included? And 13 purchase orders that have been delivered but not invoiced. Again, it's trying to tell you if your VAT return is at its best. Now, why does it do that? So if I'm just going to delete out of that. So in this VAT audit, and most of you probably don't look at this, but this is where we can set parameters up to help us to get the best out of the VAT. So identify sales, invoice and receipts where tax code is not VATable or not in use. So again, it's going to warn us. Identify sales, invoices and receipts where the VAT is less than 22% because our standard is 23, or where it's more than 24. Again, just identifying those exceptions. Now, maybe if you have a 13.5%, you may want to put that down lower. And again, where you want to look at credits. And likewise, we've got the same idea on the purchases and anything there on the transactional. So these are to help you. So you probably don't look at these too often, or I've never looked at them, but it is probably something that you should refer to. Again, all of those things are going to help your RTD. So we all know now that in the last, I think it is, couple of years that you don't get a tax clearance certificate unless you have your RTD submitted. So you'll put your period of time in there and calculate. Again, it's telling me since the last RTD, I have missed items on it. So all of these, once your VAT codes are set up correct, this will populate and the job is done for you without you having to drag out items and start adding them back up again. So the transaction list, or the audit trail as it's known there. So a couple of quick things. You've got your quick search in here. So this is your summary. So of all the transactions that are going through the system. So if I want to throw in a quick filter on to find something, is there some reference that I know I need to see what other transactions are related to it? Or maybe I've got results from my duplicates that I wanted to see, and I can put in a common identifier in here. So if I delete that, or I can use my filter, and you probably use these filters elsewhere. So I'm going to say is less than, let's say, the 1st of the 1st, 23. And if I apply that, hopefully I got some data. So you can see there behind the scenes, it's restricting the data that's there. I can put a second line in here and say and or, and then I can decide something else in the condition. So in there, quick way, but one of the lovely places that we like to use this is we can either edit it. Oh, that's not the transaction account there. So we can either edit it, we can delete it through here. Now, please, I have to say, be very careful if you're looking to delete a transaction, because it's telling me here that it was posted in a previous period, so it's warning you. And look here for things like VAT reconciled. If it's being VAT reconciled, you are going to upset your bank by deleting something. And here we've got the details of each of the lines up there, and I can give you some information. So again, just be careful. Now I've got this as a sales invoice list, so I'm restricted to what I'm able to change, but just be careful if you're using the edit or the delete item. If I have a look here, maybe if I have a look at a bank payment, can I have a look in there? It's a different financial year. So you can see now it's not grayed out, but I can see here on this one, it has been bank reconciled. So if I decided to edit a line and make a change, so let's say I'm going to put €52 on that, and I'm going to save that, and I'm going to ask me to change it. This transaction is being bank reconciled. I do not recommend that you change items that have been reconciled, because, as I said, it's harder to correct. So one of I want to look at here is the accounts audit, a bit like the VAT audit. So it's just giving you here more information on how to check your items that you're posting in on the audit trail. Very useful. Things like the EC purchases, identified purchases that we saw earlier on. And here we are setting what our default tax is for our T1. So these settings plus the VAT settings are crossing over and certainly can assist you in making sure that you're posting right. Now, sorry, I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to briefly touch on, because I have touched on it a number of times, but I just want to say, just to remember your bank reconciliation. I use the bank reconciliation. I don't use anything on the header screen here. When I come in here, all of my banking items for that bank are listed, and all I need to do is highlight a number of them, click on match. But the great thing is I do my bank reconciliation while I'm entering my customer receipts, my bank payments, any of my bank charges, any of those, they're all done under here. So I can do 2 jobs at the one time. Now, once I make sure that my balance is the same as my bank, so 189441. Now, I might be unsure, I might be disturbed. If I save progress and I go back into the bank reconciliation, I can pick it up where I left off. And once my balance here is 0, I literally click the reconcile. So I'm just going to pop into the bank feeds. I haven't got bank feeds on because it's a demo company, but I just want to introduce the idea to you. It will be useful to certain businesses and maybe not to others, but you can certainly get in touch with us. We've got to turn it on, we've got to connect to your bank, and we've got to set up rules on it. So you have your list of bank accounts. Once you click in to set it up, it'll tell you to connect which bank you want to connect. And once you're in there, you're going to see a screen very similar to this, and it's going to allow you to match off the items. So it'll download the bank and it'll match off the items that are there in Sage. And you will have a few bank rows that you can set up there regarding transaction dates, bank feeds, etc., etc. So that should help you along. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and hopefully all that came through okay. And there was some useful pieces. So apologies, I wasn't looking at the chat there. Anybody who couldn't hear, apologies. We will be sharing out the webinar recording. And okay, that's fine. So we've got 2 minutes to spare if there's any questions that anybody has. As I said, we will be sharing this out. I appreciate you taking the time out this morning. It's very busy, but I hope that you will find some shortcuts from what I've demonstrated this morning to you. Thank you very much. Miriam there, yes, that should be published, if not today, tomorrow.